Welcome to Lyme Time. I'm Allie from the Tick Chicks. We are all more than Lyme disease and chronic illness, and together we stand with you to overcome and rise. I'll bring you closer to the experts in cutting-edge treatments and even a few unexpected ways of healing. I'll ask the questions you want answers to regarding Lyme disease and successful ways of getting you closer to 100%. We are in this together and will not be defined by Lyme. Welcome back to Lyme Time. Today, I'm very excited to have as my special guest, Kim Strother. So Kim is a holistic health and wellness coach, certified personal trainer, and yoga instructor. As being aptly named one of LA's top celebrity trainers, she has spent 2 decades creating individualized health programs for clients, including her 30-day transformation program and in-home boot camp, which I'm very excited to talk to her about today. Kim is a featured fitness instructor on the Melissa Wood Health app and has taught for various studios and workshops across the country, including Yoga Glow, Barry's Boot Camp, Bandier, South by Southwest, and Summit Series. Kim's full circle approach to wellness comes from an underlying belief in bio-individuality. She believes that each and every person has unique needs, that personal differences in anatomy, metabolism, and body composition all influence overall health and what makes you feel your best. Kim's philosophy begins with viewing wellness as a deeply individualized journey. Her approach includes an equal dose of fitness, functional nutrition, and mindfulness. Love that. Kim's goal is to create accessible wellness plans for anyone seeking to become a healthier version of themselves. As a nutritional consultant, Kim's passion for integrative health is a personal one. In 2013, after many months of struggling with extreme fatigue, she was diagnosed with Lyme disease. Her personal journey toward recovery ultimately led her to nutritional nourishment and integrative wellness as a means for healing. As a former Ford model, she has appeared on the cover of Runner's World and has been featured in Fitness Magazine, Self, Shape, Women's Health, and Health. Kim has also been the face of campaigns for Nike, Reebok, Champion, Vibram, Lady Foot Locker, Adidas, and Columbia Sportswear, and was named one of the most in-demand fitness models by Rack.com. Kim is certified through the National Academy of Sports Medicine, Yoga Alliance, and the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And I am just thrilled to have you here today, Kim. Welcome to Lyme Time.
Thank you for having me.
We met for 30 seconds, I believe, at the Project Lyme Gala, where you were a featured speaker, and it was just a wonderful, lovely event. And I was glad to hear some of your story, and I really wanted to be able to let you expand into the Lyme disease community and talk a little bit about your own personal experience. So why don't we start there? Walk us through your diagnosis of Lyme disease, maybe what was happening beforehand and where you are today.
Yeah, it's definitely a long journey, as I feel like it is for many people, unfortunately. I believe I was misdiagnosed from the age of 8 until finally turning 30 and finding out that it was in fact Lyme. But when I was 8 years old, was hospitalized for almost 2 weeks, and doctors in South Jersey couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Although Lyme was very prevalent in New Jersey at the time, it wasn't really something talked about as much or like looked for as in-depthly as it should have been. And so I think I got labeled with a maybe it's Giardia diagnosis, but in hindsight, it was every symptom of Lyme, flu-like symptoms, body aches and pains, and sweating obviously through the night, and you know, all of those symptoms that come with immediate tick bite symptom. So that happened, and then, you know, got sent home from the hospital and seemingly was okay, was pumped with antibiotics while I was there. And then I had bouts of extreme fatigue throughout my teens, throughout my 20s, and oftentimes was misdiagnosed again by doctors and would be told, especially in high school, I actually did not eat meat through high school, and I didn't eat meat for 16 years. So, and I was super active. I was running track. I was a competitive cheerleader, and I was often going from running, cross country practice straight into competitive cheerleading practice where I was tumbling because I was a gymnast. And so I was doing a lot, and doctors would often tell my mom and I that I was overactive, I was doing too many sports, or it was that I didn't eat meat, and they would pump me with iron pills and kind of send me on my way. And these bouts of fatigue would last anywhere from a couple weeks, maybe a little bit longer, and then they would go away for quite some time. And so I just kind of dealt with them when they happened, and again would go to the doctor, get pumped with iron pills, and that was about it. And into my 20s, I kind of started getting, multiple symptoms across the board, and was seeing individual specialists for every symptom I was having. So I was having terrible migraines and was seeing a neurologist for that. I was having terrible GI symptoms. My stomach would swell really bad. I would look like I swallowed a basketball. I was having rashes up my torso. I was having chronic sinus infections, upper respiratory infections, body aches and pains, ringing in my ears, you name it. I kind of had the symptom. And again, was seeing, a dermatologist for the rashes, an ENT for the sinus infections, a different ENT for the ringing in my ears, certainly the neurologist, the GI, and no doctor was talking to one another. And granted, my general care doctor was often testing me and telling me, my white blood cell count was always low. And so I was getting across the board multiple things. Doctors thought I had leukemia. Doctors thought I was crazy and it was in my head. Doctors would just pump me with antibiotics and steroids to kill the chronic sinus and upper respiratory infection that I had. And it was very visible, discolored mucus that was not fun. And then like that was kind of it. And I was chasing all of these symptoms, spending way too much money on it, seeing every doctor that I could, knowing something was inherently wrong, but was also being told I was crazy in my head by a lot of doctors. I did go on antidepressants at one point during this process because I had enough doctors tell me I was crazy that I started to think like, maybe I am crazy. Maybe did I make this up? I made it 6 months on Wellbutrin and eventually got off because I was like, I feel like I'm not myself and I'm still sick. It definitely helped because I do think through the process, depression was certainly a part of it because I went from, I was a fitness instructor and, modeling at the time. And I was super healthy. I was doing triathlons to then not being able to walk down a city block without forgetting where I was going often. I started to like write down where I was going because I would forget. And then also being extremely tired from just walking not that far. So it was really challenging and did feel quite depressing and lonely. And certainly no one understood what was going on. And it was a really challenging time. So that was kind of the process of getting diagnosed, which was very long. Um, and then I finally was diagnosed with Lyme thanks to a date that I went on. And my date was telling me that he was 40 and single because he lost his 30s to Lyme. And I asked him what that meant. And he started telling me his journey. And as he was telling me, I was like, as I was on antibiotics at the time and with a horrible, horrible chronic, the upper respiratory and sinus infection. And I told him enough about my own journey with my health at the time. And he encouraged me to force my doctor to test me for Lyme. And sadly, at the time, the doctor I was seeing was in New York City, a great doctor that also treated people for Lyme, but never tested me for Lyme, which is weird since I told him I grew up on a Christmas tree farm in South Jersey and would spend time out in the Hamptons or in upstate New York where ticks, again, are prevalent and Lyme is high. So that was a miss. And he was actually treating me for Candida, which I also had really bad because I almost probably the last year before I was diagnosed, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I was on antibiotics and steroids once a month because this infection kept coming back. I actually had yeast coating my sinus cavity because they put a camera up my nose and down my throat at the ENT and we could see yeast coating the sinus cavity. So he was treating me for candida, which I do think was necessary, but then I pushed him to have me do the IGeneX test, which he did tell me how expensive it was, almost trying to almost like not have me do that test. I thankfully didn't listen, probably opened another credit card, popped it on there, did the test, and thankfully it came back with 3 co-infections of Lyme. My actual Lyme came back inconclusive, but I had Babesia, Bartonella, and Rocky Mountain spotted fever. From there, he put me on doxycycline for 9 months,
Oh,
which didn't work. In fact, it made me feel worse because it was really just contributing again to the candida issue. So I would often have to go on breaks of taking high doses of fluconazole daily for a week. We got to a point where fluconazole wasn't helping, so we switched to nystatin. And I would just basically go in this vicious cycle of antifungals, doxycycline. And it just, again, for 9 months was such a miss, was feeling so terrible. And then I thankfully started seeing, again, went back into the cycle of trying to see all these different doctors, seeing infectious disease, seeing doctors that, for different specialties until I finally found a doctor, again, here in New York City, Dr. Frank Littman, who was a functional medicine doctor. Thankfully, the first thing he did was take me off of doxycycline. And the biggest thing, of course, he said to me was, we have to get the candida under control because it was so bad. And he said to me, I'm putting you on an extreme version of the candida diet. So you can only have green vegetables and protein. And I didn't eat meat for 16 years. I was also so sick that I was willing to do anything at this point. And I said, well, I don't eat meat. And he said, you'll either be really hungry, only having green vegetables, or you'll start eating meat again. And so that night I had a filet mignon and really never looked back in terms of eating meat. And for me personally, and again, I encourage people all the time to figure out what works for you, because what works for one person does not always apply to everyone because we are all different. But for me, it was such a game changer. And the thing that I think to this day is the thing that keeps me the most on track with my health is my nutrition. And certainly, again, didn't eat meat for years. I saw doctors along the way that were more holistic, that would, again, pull me off of sugar, dairy, and grains. And, in my early 20s, when I didn't feel well, but it wasn't as bad as it was by the time as I was 30, I'd make it a week, 2 weeks, a month, pulling out those things. But then I was young, I was going out. I was like, I'm going to eat the pasta or have a glass of wine if I want. And, would kind of fall off track. But really, the nutrition piece is the piece that I think is the most valuable, and that we can do on our own, and we can do from home, and it doesn't cost us any money or running to a doctor. We can take so much control of our own health through what we're putting in our body, and figuring out what works for your body. So for me, that was a huge, within 2 weeks of doing that diet, and again, granted, it was very strict, but within 2 weeks I was like, I can think again. I had mental clarity that I hadn't had in months. And so that was nice. I mean, certainly I did plateau, and that was just a piece of the healing puzzle. There were so many more things that I was doing. And to rattle off a list of things I was also doing, I was doing colonics regularly to help with the detox process, lymphatic drainage. I was doing a lot of infrared sauna. Epsom salt bath, another one that you can do from home that really does not cost a lot, was huge for, again, helping detox. I also was seeing a doctor in Canada. I really went far and wide with my Lyme. I was sitting in front of this infrared light machine, but thankfully that infrared light machine has a name, and it's Wave One, or the Nikki by Freemedica. And that was so I had the before it was a wearable device, but now it is a wearable and much easier to
I have
do.
one. I have
You
one and I
do.
love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. But, I mean, I often find that, in your journey,
Mhm.
you're going to come to different stages of it. And
Yeah.
that would not have made sense in my mind to go to frequency healing in the beginning.
Right.
So
Right.
I love the fact that, Lyme disease often is just so impossible. It feels impossible in the beginning, but then once you sort of get over that initial hump, your mind begins to open, or at least I hope a lot of people's minds begin to open to different
Yeah.
types of frequencies. And I know you're sitting here and you look as though you're in perfect health to
Thank
me,
you.
but how are you feeling today?
Yeah.
And how long has it been since, you kind of got into that healing mode and then into today?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a tricky one. And I will tell you that even when I was my most sick, and granted, I was modeling at the time, oftentimes people would tell me, well, you don't look sick. And
Yeah.
I'd be like, I feel like I'm dying inside. And so I think people didn't get it. And so oftentimes it doesn't show up outwardly. Um, Sometimes I personally think it does. I can tell when I don't feel well because I get swollen. Certainly, my stomach swells, my hands, my ankles, my feet can
And I think
swell.
women are masters at
Oh, a
concealer. And
chill.
if you
Yeah,
do your hair and kind of get a little bit dressed up, you can kind of pass. That
totally.
this is very common. We hear a lot where people say, but you look fine. And
Right.
you feel like
Yeah,
you're dying inside.
absolutely. And so, it really it has been a journey and a process. And I weirdly, like, I feel in comparison to how I felt when I was 30 and I'm 42, I feel like a different person. I
Yeah.
really do. I feel like I have my life back. I feel like, for the most part, I can think and function. And granted, I'm a fitness instructor, so I'm teaching. So, yes, I completely different than I felt when I was my most sick. But do I have flare-ups? Yes. And is my immune system still a bit compromised from years of undiagnosed Lyme and chronic Lyme? Also, yes. A year ago, actually, in November, I had endometriosis surgery. So that was fun. And that was, another annoying process that should have been diagnosed in my 20s that completely got overlooked, even though I had a multitude of symptoms for that. But finally was diagnosed with endo through freezing my eggs. That process was revealed. And I did have endometriosis surgery last November. But after my surgery, I really started to not feel well again. And I kind of was like, is my Lyme back? And granted, the thing I probably struggle with the most that's annoying is SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And again, I think from years of being pumped with antibiotics and steroids, like, my gut has suffered tremendously. And so it's not shocking, actually, that I struggle with SIBO. Also, SIBO and endometriosis really go hand in hand. So, what came first, the chicken or the egg? There, we're not really sure. But so my gut has been an issue, and my SIBO actually was like really flared up. I did 2 rounds of Xifaxan, which is a very specific antibiotic for SIBO, and the SIBO wasn't clearing. And granted, I had my endo surgery, my hormones are kind of out of whack, and I tested for Lyme again because I thought, like, is my Lyme back? But it was so hard for me to say because I was like, is it my Lyme? Is it my endo? Is it my hormones? I'm 42. Am I in perimenopause? Like, what is happening? Why am I tired? I'm not sure what's going on. And so and again, I tested, and granted, my SIBO kept coming back up and that would come back positive, but it wasn't clearing with medicine. It wasn't clearing with herbs. And finally, a dear friend of mine, her name is Jody Levy, uh, also someone who's had Lyme, and the creator of the milk cleanse, which is also something I've done on my journey, also with Lyme, that has been super helpful. And I did the milk cleanse for 3 days and I wasn't feeling well. And this was, I don't know, not even that, like 6 months ago. I did the milk cleanse, wasn't probably less than 6 months ago, wasn't feeling well. And normally with the milk cleanse, it's like after one day of it, I am back in business. I feel like my eyes are whiter. I can think, I have energy, and I'm
Wow.
back. And Jody was like, if you're not feeling well on milk, she was like, please test for mold. And she had said this to me before. And she was like, would you just do the mold test? And so, of course, I finally listened to her. and I tested for mold. And sure enough, my mold came back super high. And now, of course, during my, again, 28 to 30, I had high mold, high mercury, Epstein-Barr, all my co-infections of Lyme. Like I've been down this road before. And I just think, at this stage, like two things can happen. It can be really frustrating because I do all the things that should keep me feeling well. Like I eat a paleo diet, so no sugar, no dairy, no grains. I meditate, I journal, I watch the way I talk to myself, I move my body, I sauna, I do all of the things that you would think like I should be the healthiest person on earth. And sometimes when I have a flare up, I can kind of go into that like shame spiral or like PTSD is like, why is this happening to me when I'm doing all of these things? And in those moments, I am much better at catching those thoughts pretty quickly and having ease and grace with myself and reminding myself that first of all, I do all the things and I will continue to eat the way I eat and do all the practices I do because A, it gives me sanity, and B, they are the things that actually keep me healthy. And I can't imagine if I didn't do those things and was having these flare ups. I think I would have them more often. But, I am someone that got misdiagnosed for years and I had chronic Lyme, have chronic Lyme. So it's one of those things like my immune system isn't as strong as someone else and I have to be gentle with my body. I have to be easy with my body and I am going to have moments that I might have a time like this where it might not be directly Lyme, but it is something that I believe is a side is because I had Lyme and because
Yeah.
my immune system was so weak that these other things can kind of flare up and I
I
happen to
think
be in one of them right now.
yeah. Well, I'm sorry to
Yeah,
hear that.
it's okay.
And
Thank
that's why
you.
I said, you look great, but I wanted to know how you're really feeling. This is something that I think we should normalize in the Lyme community to just
Yeah.
check in with one another and say, I mean, you look great. How are you really doing? Um, and I think it's important to say that, I had this myself that many different things can trigger a Lyme reaction.
Hmm.
And I had many of the exact same things, many of the same co-infections. I had the chronic EBV that I couldn't clear for so long.
Hmm.
And I didn't have surgery, but I had a lot of dental work done. It was like a
Okay.
3-day process. And,
Yeah.
I did all the things. I wore my Nikki. I listened to music and I was watching movies. I was just trying to regulate my breathing. And yet I had about a 6-month, sort of relapse after that. And
Hmm.
I kind of I was trying not to have it dictate how I was going to feel after my thoughts. I was trying to
Right.
retrain my brain and say, don't expect this. This is going to be fine. Da, da, da. And I'm sure I did well and better than after
Hmm.
by actually trying to retrain my brain and my thoughts. But the truth of the matter is that when you have a surgery or when your body goes through another trauma, it could be a
Yeah.
sudden onset of stress and the death of a loved one or even just a car accident, something like that. We all need
Hmm.
to be really mindful that Lyme disease is kind of it's it's sort of it can be put to rest and yet
Absolutely.
also be triggered. So I think that's an important point to make is to everybody out there listening. It's all about prevention and just really trying to get ahead of it when you know something's coming up. This is a broad question for you, but
Sure.
uh, you know, you were the picture of health before you had Lyme disease. You were known
Hmm.
for your physical body, and your athleticism. What lessons did you learn now coming out the other side of Lyme disease? What lessons did you learn through having a chronic illness?
Yeah. I think I have so many lessons, first of all, but I think for me, when I was like my most sick, I was so hard on myself for being sick. because I was also comparing myself to this healthier version of myself that was doing triathlons and lifting heavy weights and teaching jump rope classes and kind of doing all of this really active stuff. And so to then not be able to do it, I was really hard on myself and felt, lazy almost for not being able to do those things. I also quickly slipped into a victim mentality. And I say this with caution because I remember I had a few people tell me that I was being a victim, and it was very triggering to me. And I had choice words for those people. And so, because I am from New Jersey and we can have choice words. And so I I really like it was something that really bothered me. And I will tell you that Louise Hay's book, You
Uh,
Can Heal Your Life, was so eye-opening for me because it addressed this victim mentality, but in a way that was digestible and didn't feel like someone telling you you're a victim, right? It was like, oh. And I started to pay attention to the inner dialogue that was going on in my head that was really negative and was like, why is this happening to me? And it is really hard to get out of that place when you're in it. That is for sure. And I also am in therapy, was in therapy, and that also is such a game changer. And I feel very lucky that I can have therapy regularly, because that was huge. But, a bigger piece that, again, I could do on my own that it didn't cost me. I don't know how much that book is, $14.99, maybe, or whatever it is. Don't quote me on that. But such a huge piece to the puzzle, which is how I was speaking to myself. And I really did do all the mirror work and repeat affirmations. And so learning, so through the process, like learning how I was speaking to myself was such a huge part. And, really creating a daily gratitude list. And again, there were days where I really didn't know what to be grateful for when I felt the way that I did, but I would stick to the practice and be like, well, I'm thankful that the sky is blue today. Or like that I had a dog at the time. And so I was thankful for my dog. I would really like, it would be a struggle. But once you get into that habit of what there, because there are things to be grateful for that we often forget about, and when we're not feeling well. And I think even though if it's digging and struggling to find those gratitude practices, finding them, and I still do them daily. And I think that it can change your life. Absolutely. I think also through the process with Lyme, because I was going from this, like, why is this happening to me, to getting curious instead and looking at it more from the lens of like, not, why is this happening to me, but like how, like, I would often ask, like, show me what to do, show me why this is happening to me, and know that it was happening for me instead of to me. That was a really big shift. And again, not to say that if you're in your journey and you're sick, you could be listening to me right now and be like, this girl's out of her mind. But I'm telling you, and it is a struggle at first, because like anything, it's a muscle and it is a practice. Like I, I can compare it to the gym. Like we don't get a strong core if we're not doing the exercises to get there. And so just the mental piece, it's just another muscle, retraining it to look for the gratitude. Again, the affirmations to speak to yourself. I am healthy, I am healing, even when you feel like death is hard to get out of your mouth. But once you start to say it and you really start to believe it, I'm telling you, it can change the course of your healing. And it was so hard for me to hear that at first, but please read Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. So that was a big piece. And also for me, like I said, like getting curious, like this is happening for me. And I think it did. I can say now on the other side of it, I can see where it has changed my life dramatically, that I'm easier on myself. I give myself more grace and more love. And if I'm not feeling well, I don't force myself to do things that I don't force myself to work out when I'm not feeling well. I also work out completely differently than I did. And again, I was caught in this weird comparison of looking at myself doing triathlons. I, triathlons are so far gone for me. And granted, I loved them. And I like, they're sure, like they were fun, but they don't serve me now with this body, with my health. So I really listen to the way I listen to my body, and that decides how I will move. I love hot yoga. I love yoga sculpt. I love things that are easier on my body, easier on my nervous system. I'm not doing intense hit workouts anymore. Will I do them if I'm feeling really well? Sure. Will I do them occasionally? Absolutely, because I love them and they're huge. I mean, I've been doing them since I was practically 3. I grew up as a gymnast, so I'm used to those intense workouts. I also, again, used to run miles. If I have a day or if I have a client that we're working on some specific goal and I'm running with them, great. I can do it occasionally, but it is not something that I put in my daily routine like I used to, because I actually listen to my body now. I honor my body where when I was healthy and I could do it, great, I did it. But was I overdoing it then and probably like spiking my cortisol through the roof, which is just like not good in general for anybody, healthy or not? But I could do it. And so I did. And I just don't do that anymore. So I think I've learned to give myself grace and honor my body and what's actually going on, and giving it the rest that it deserves, and moving in an easier way that's not going to crush me days later.
Yeah, I often talk about not only giving myself grace now because I was a people pleaser, I was doing all the things, I was
Mm,
head of the
same.
PTA and all the stuff, giving yourself grace and
Yeah.
breathing into, hey, I'm not going to get all these things accomplished on my list today, and also giving others grace, which I think is
Oof,
really hard for a Lyme patient because
yeah.
people are judging constantly. You feel
Hmm.
like you have to explain. You feel like you don't have answers for anyone. And yet, I think the biggest gift you can give yourself is to, you don't have to be around that kind of energy all the time, but you don't
Hmm.
also have to carry anger and resentment toward people for having the judgments and all of that because it just doesn't serve your immune system at the end of
Right.
the day. So not only having grace for yourself, but also having grace for other people and sort of like realizing that's they're also coming from a limited understanding and just
Right.
letting it go, feel it for a second, and then let it go.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
you're describing, oftentimes my listeners who have Lyme disease are the adventurers. They are the people that were very active. They're hunters, they're campers, they're out in the beautiful nature all the time. I mean,
Hmm.
these are people that came from a very physically active lifestyle and now they cannot move. They're in bed. And I think I love that you can recognize and we can relate to you in a way of really saying, hey, this is happening to me and I wasn't a victim before. And
Hmm.
I didn't have this limited mentality before, but now I am forced to live in this body, this new body. And,
Hmm.
we all want to get back to our lives before, but also understanding you may or may not, you might get to 96% or 92% or 90%, but having the understanding that you're going through a transformation, it may or may not look similar in the at the end of the day. But if it doesn't, learning to be okay with rediscovering other parts of yourself.
Yeah.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Um, so okay, so a lot of our listeners right now might be in that stage. They might be in an acute stage of really, really tough Lyme disease. They may be in bed in their pajamas all day, just listening to this as they get a treatment
Hmm.
or can't move their bodies. Um, what would you tell them, you know, about their physical because they know they need to detox and maybe
Hmm.
break a sweat. but they don't have any energy or stamina. What would you say to those people right now? Maybe take yourself back to those moments that you had in bed.
Yeah, you know, if it's too hard to really leave the house, and again, also uh, everything costs so much money. Um,
Yeah.
the things that really did help, especially with the detox, Epsom salt bath is so underrated. But if you can get the bath water up as like high as you can tolerate, don't burn yourself. Um, but get that bath water up and I mean, I would take a whole bag, dump the salt in the bathtub. And really 20 minutes and you will start to sweat in that bath. And I often, and I still do this, will do that if I can't get to do an infrared sauna. Or certainly I'm a believer of colonics as well. But again, I not in the process, again, depending on how you're feeling and where you are in the detox process, but they can really help if you're not detoxing fast enough. But Epsom salt bath from home and doing that 20 minutes as hot as you can, that is a great thing to do. Certainly, there are sauna blankets that you can buy at home. Higher dose is one that I have that I absolutely love and super easy. I plug it in, I let it heat up for 30 minutes, and I'm like, I know I have a discount code, guys. I gotta find it. It's on my website for higher dose.
Yes,
To share with
kimstrother.com.
you. Yes, but you can. There is a discount code on there for their sauna blanket. And again, it's great and easy to do. It is expensive to buy, but it is way less expensive than going to an infrared sauna multiple times. Because in the city, it's like $150 a pop to go to a sauna, which is insane. And so, yeah, and I'll lay in there for 20 minutes minimum, but usually it takes me a good 20 to start to sweat in the sauna blanket. And I try to stay in for up to an hour if I can. So that's another great tool at home to do.
And what about just in terms of your physical, did you stretch? Did you do anything from bed? Do you recommend like chair yoga? I mean,
Yeah.
because
Ah,
I found in the beginning of my Lyme disease, I don't know about you, but I felt like my muscles were constricting to such a degree that it was even hard to even just stretch my calf muscles out. So
yeah.
what do you recommend for movement?
Yeah. Sometimes I think the most important thing is just getting out of the bed. And it can be one of the most difficult steps is to get out of bed. And it's amazing, I think, the energy shift in just getting out and whether you're going from your bed to your couch. It's getting out of the bed is just a step in the process, a step in getting out and you'll be amazed too because once you change locations and your mind does start to shift. I'm like, oh, well, what am I going to do now? And maybe that opens you up to like, well, I'm out here now. Maybe I will sit and turn on a meditation, or maybe I will do a gentle stretch right now, or maybe I'll journal, or maybe you're turning on the television, but you're moving and you're getting out of the bed and moving somewhere else. You're just moving the energy, right? To get you out of this stagnant place. And again, I say it with love, with care, with ease, because I get it. I was there and also didn't want to get out of bed. And even as I'm detoxing mold, like my mornings are hard to get out of bed. I'm tired. And I have to like put the phone on the other side of the room. So the alarm is over there. And I literally will just relocate to just change the energy, change the dynamic. And again, it just opens up the pathway for a new opportunity to do something different. And if you have the energy, certainly, yeah, gentle yoga, a yin yoga class. There are a million apps. I tend to be on one. But I will say my classes are faster paced now, so don't take my classes. But take a gentle yoga, a yin yoga that really you're holding like six positions and you're just holding them. So doing easy, gentle things, but just simply moving your body. And if you're not on an app, you know, just move how it feels good. Move through a few cat cows, move, get your spine moving, the synovial fluid moving, like move, just stretch your legs gently, lay on your back, let your body kind of twist side to side. There are things you can just do on your own to just kind of again move the energy that's
I
in your
love that.
body.
I love that. I thought of that this morning, actually. Sometimes I just say, get dressed.
Yeah.
So if you can get out of bed, and if you have the bonus energy to actually get dressed,
Yeah.
put on shoes. I will say that sometimes you're just gonna be in your home or go to work and just do the bare minimum physically or whatever, but
Yeah.
there's a moment in the day where you think to yourself, oh, I should, I could walk the dog.
Right.
Take it, but you're already
Right.
have your shoes on and just take it and go outside for 10 minutes and get some vitamin
Right.
D and some exercise. And you're already dressed because oftentimes if you're in your slippers and robe and all that stuff, you have the thought, but you think, oh, I got to go back upstairs and blah, 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 and
Right.
you kind of talk yourself out of it. I want
Yeah.
to talk a little bit about because at the Tick Chicks, we do talk a lot about mind, body, spirit, a holistic approach to healing Lyme.
Hmm.
And, that can involve, allopathic medicine, holistic medicine, functional integrative medicine. But whatever it is for you, putting in that extra piece of the puzzle, which is brain rewiring and sort of whatever you would term as spiritual component to that,
Hmm.
and sort of metaphysical or even just psychologically moving and growing in that way, just as you are in a physical way, really completes the picture. So I want to know from you, what kinds of spiritual lessons did you learn along your journey? Did you have any um, reconnections with anything, or did you connect with spirit in a different way
Hmm.
after your disease?
Yeah, absolutely. I, grew up in a household that was not very religious at all. It was kind of like a mixed bag of things. And we were like church people on Christmas and Easter, basically. And so I never had this like deep sense of spirituality. And I think getting sick and going through the process of that, I started to really like look for a higher power. And again, like Louise Hay's book, also I read this other book by Marianne Williamson called A Return to Love, which again falls under the spirituality category. And so, and granted, I feel like I was listening to Joel Olstein for a while on TV. I mean, that Oprah, I was listening to her. Oh my gosh, it was called Super Soul Sunday. I was like listening to that constantly. Then I started going to Kabbalah for a while. I mean, I really tried all the things. Um, and I feel like I absolutely am a spiritual person now. And I pray every morning and every night, along with my gratitude list that is in there. It is a huge piece because I think that through the process of any chronic illness, and again, it can feel so lonely. And a lot of people don't understand. And like you said too, giving people grace. I always really try to give people grace and remind myself that, and sometimes I even remind them that they are lucky that they don't understand chronic illness because I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And so, I don't think you understand chronic illness until you have it. And so we have to remind ourselves when people don't understand that they just don't know what they don't know. And good for them that they have no idea. And again, it's hard to give people grace, but I really try. But, you know, I think where was I going with this? I can sidetrack myself. But with spirituality, I think I I knew that there had to be like if I'm in this alone, it's really lonely. But when I have my connection to a higher power and to God, that I'm not alone. And I would often, and Marianne Williamson is a big one with this, in prayer, asking, please save my life. And I can't tell you how many times in my prayers, in my darkest moments, that I would say, please save my life. And because I didn't know anymore. I was like at a point where I was like, I can't live like this. I don't want to live like this. And really giving it over to God and knowing that the answer will come. And then knowing that I will figure out a way and everything will get better. But when we do it on our own, oh my God, it seems daunting and overwhelming and lonely and awful. But when we have that connection, and again, it doesn't matter what religion you are or what you believe in, but you have a connection to source or a higher power, which again just brings us back to self in general. I think it makes the journey so much easier, and so it's not as lonely,
Yeah.
because and you can really trust. And I really am a believer that when we ask, we will be given and we will be shown what to do next. And so oftentimes too, even again with the mold, it's like, show me what to do. And then when I sit in meditation and I ask the question first, I wish the answer just was like bam. And it doesn't work like that. However, I always say it's when we get quiet is when, and this is like a famous quote, I did not make this up and I don't know who I stole it from, but it's when we get quiet is when we hear the most. I think maybe it was Rumi, but it's so true. And when we start asking the higher power for the answer of like, show me what to do next, we often know. And so in just sitting, whether it's 5 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, whatever you can do, and we sit in meditation and we actually get quiet, we know, our bodies know. We are smart, intuitive people. And it's when we actually can get quiet and get back in touch with ourselves and back in touch with a higher power. There is so much power there and so much knowledge there. And so, again, listening, we're all so different. Listening to our bodies, like we will know. And again, the answer doesn't come like this, but it will come days later, maybe it's weeks later. And all of a sudden you're like, oh,
Yeah.
like, this is what I should be doing. I have a best friend who always is like, I got a hit, and I make fun of her all the time because she's super spiritual and woo woo, but it's true. Like those things are real. You get this moment where you get what, call it a hit, call it a download, call it whatever you want. But it's this inner knowing or messages from our higher power, however you want to look at it. But we know and we will get the answers. We just have to trust.
I think you're right. I think for me it comes as intuition. It can usually
Mhm.
it comes at like 3 or 4 in the morning when I just open my eyes and a thought is so clear and a
Mhm.
message is so clear to me. And but you also have to be willing to hear it.
Yeah.
I could have tossed and turned and just thought, oh, I'm just ruminating in my thoughts and da 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 and take a, sleeping aid. But
Right.
instead, I chose to listen to my intuition, and that was really, really powerful for me. I want to talk about a service that you're doing that's unique, and it's
Okay.
a home retreat.
Yes.
You create a plan for those that can't really leave their area to attend a wellness retreat. Will you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one that was born many years ago from a client of mine who had her second baby and wanted to, and wasn't feeling great and really wanted to feel better. And so she didn't want to leave the kids and wasn't like feeling well enough to go out to a retreat or daily go into town for workout classes. And so I moved in. I moved in.
I love it.
Yeah, so I moved in, and granted, they actually had a chef already, so I worked with the chef to kind of create a meal guide. And granted, we did paleo then, so creating a paleo food nutrition program to follow. And we were doing yoga and workouts. And granted, this was in California, so we were out hiking. I even think we rollerbladed. And so we were really doing all the things. And again, they had sauna and cold plunge at their house, which was lovely. So that was very much in the mix of what we were doing. And then it really became a thing. We documented it more for fun at the time because I never really thought that was going to be a piece of my offerings at the time. And ever since then, it just kind of kept happening. People saw a friend, somebody else saw it on Instagram, and then that person said it to this person, and it just kind of became this word of mouth thing that I do, and it is very much still a part of my offerings and that I love. But I essentially do move in with people and create a retreat experience in the comfort of their own home. And certainly before
I volunteer.
okay, great, done, done, done.
Come and live with me for a little while. I mean,
Done. And I bring if you don't
wonderful.
have a chef, I bring a chef with me. She is
Great.
actually, my chef is the one that actually will say, I have a hit. And I laugh at her still to this day. Love her. She is the best. Her name is Jessica Crux. She is incredible. But yeah, so she'll often come with me if someone doesn't have a chef at home.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's a great way to just jumpstart. There are certain people that, I was a cheerleader and I ran track, but I certainly was
Yeah,
not the athlete that you were in my previous life. So, actually putting it into action is kind of challenging. I can do it once I'm in action, but it's
right.
getting to do that and getting to learn how your routine
100%.
can work in your own home, which is great.
Yeah.
Okay, and you have a personal practice of wellness coaching as well. Can you let us know about that and how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, right now my business has kind of like taken its own life recently and in transformation because I am filming and I have my clients that I am doing these in-home retreats for, and lots of traveling for events and retreats. So really right now, I'm excited. In January I'm launching it's called the Paleo Path. And that to me is, again, such the foundation of how I live, how I continue to keep my health in check. And it is paleo, so no sugar, no dairy, no grains. But that will be launching in January, and it will be a course. So you will have there's videos throughout to kind of walk you through the process step by step of how to get there. There are over 65 recipes. There's a meal guide. There's meditations each week. There's journaling prompts. So again, coming back to that mindful piece as well. So that to me is it's working with me. You're not getting me fully one-on-one, but we're hoping to like sprinkle me into that program too. But we're working on all of it. But that's coming out in January. So right now, that's the best. That will be the best way to work with me. The in-home retreats, obviously, and then I am teaching events all the time. I'm teaching a retreat in upstate New York, 90 minutes north of the city, at Wildflower Farms, January 13th to the 15th. So that's another way to just work with me in person. And I tell people to it, which it sounds so lame to say, but through my website, and it's also lives on my Instagram, but sign up for my newsletter because my life is always changing and my offerings are always changing. So
I
if you're
just
on
signed
the
up this
newsletter,
morning,
okay,
actually.
great.
I
Thank
I
you.
I follow you on Instagram and all your platforms, but I never had subscribed to your newsletter. So I just signed up this morning. I'm very excited
Thank
about
you. Well, thank you.
that.
It's the best way because even on Instagram and certainly too with the algorithm and just social media in general, it can get lost in like what my offerings are. And so the newsletter is the best. I mean, granted, everything's listed on my website that I am offering, but the newsletter, if I have something that's coming up or a new offering or the course launching, it's the best way to know, how to reach me. But also too, I tell people reach out to me. You can email me through my website if you have questions is the best way.
Well, we will be reaching out to you. And also, I'd love to have you maybe someday at the Losing Lyme retreat, which would be fantastic.
I would love it.
But everybody out there, you can reach Kim through Kim Strother. That's STROTHER.com. Kim, I just really appreciate your time with us today. I'm sad that we have to end it, but maybe
Oh
come back
no. Yes,
and
I'd love to.
just thank you so much. Much love to
Thank
you,
you.
and we
Same to
so
you.
much valuable information today. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope it was helpful.
It certainly was.
Great.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Lime Time Podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe on your favorite platform to be notified of new episodes. Remember, this is not intended to be medical advice. Take your findings to your provider to see if something is right for you. No two bodies heal the same, and your doctor knows you and your labs best. You can find out more about the Tick Chicks at thetickchicks.com, and if you subscribe there, you'll be notified of upcoming events like the in-person Losing Lyme retreat that I host. I also have shopping pages dedicated to helping your at-home symptom relief, as well as a private support group. Join the Tick Chicks tribe on Instagram, YouTube, Meta, TikTok, Pinterest, and X. You are not alone.